At our baby shower, the room glowed with pastel balloons and laughter. My wife, Emily, slipped her fingers through mine as relatives gathered close. Then, with the same steady smile she used for holiday photos, she raised her glass and announced, "This baby isn't his." Her hand tightened on mine while the room froze. Cups halfway lifted, cake untouched, whispers dying in throats. In that instant, my entire life cracked apart under the weight of her calm confession. My name is Michael Turner. I'm 35, and until that moment, I thought I understood what it meant to build a steady life. I grew up in a modest neighborhood in Ohio, the son of a mechanic and a school secretary. My parents drilled into me two values: loyalty and responsibility. I carried those into adulthood like anchors, believing if I worked hard and stayed true, everything else would fall into place. Emily came into my life 9 years ago at a coworker's barbecue. She was radiant in ways that felt almost cinematic, quick to laugh, effortlessly graceful, and curious about my quiet hobbies like woodworking and trail hiking. She made me feel seen in a way few ever had. Within 2 years, we were married. We didn't have much: a rented apartment above a laundromat, hand-me-down furniture, and mismatched dishes from thrift shops. But it felt like enough. I put in the hours, late nights at the architectural firm where I worked, designing modest housing projects, saving every bonus check. Emily worked in marketing, with her natural charisma carrying her further than most colleagues. She liked the spotlight. I preferred being the one behind the camera. It balanced, or so I believed. When Emily told me she was pregnant, I thought it was the missing piece to our life. She wrapped the news inside a small wooden box with a pair of tiny socks, leaving it on my drafting desk. I cried, really cried, the way you do when you realize your childhood lessons about family are coming full circle. Every sacrifice suddenly made sense. The overtime, the skipped vacations, the careful budgeting. It was all for this. Our families rallied too. My mother knitted blankets before the second trimester. Emily's parents insisted on paying for part of the nursery. Friends offered hand-me-down cribs, strollers, books. The baby shower became the symbolic celebration of all of it. Our journey, our love, our future. That Saturday, our rented hall was strung with pastel ribbons. A cake towered on one side, decorated with sugar roses. Friends from work, cousins I hadn't seen in years. Emily's entire extended family. They all showed up. Everyone kept saying how lucky I was, how Emily looked radiant, how this baby was already so loved. I believed them. Standing there, Emily's hand wrapped in mine, I felt like the quiet man who finally caught the sunlight. I thought the biggest surprise of the day would be the gender reveal tucked inside a balloon. Instead, it was Emily's voice, calm and unwavering, as she looked straight at me in front of everyone and said the child she carried wasn't mine. The silence after Emily's announcement stretched longer than any silence I'd ever known. Forks hovered mid-air. My cousin coughed into her napkin. Someone dropped a champagne flute, and the faint crack of glass on tile echoed like a gunshot. Emily just kept smiling that calm, camera-ready smile, like she hadn't just detonated my world. I didn't speak. Couldn't. My throat locked. Words stuck like gravel. She finally eased her hand from mine, smoothed her dress, and turned to accept a hug from one of her aunts, as if the entire room hadn't just witnessed her confession. That night, after the guests had gone and the hall was stripped of its balloons, I sat on the edge of our bed, replaying the moment. Emily brushed her hair in the mirror, humming. No tears, no apologies. Just business as usual. I asked quietly, "Why did you do that in front of everyone?" She didn't flinch. It was time to be honest. Better now than later, I stared at her reflection, searching for cracks in the armor, anything human beneath the poise. "But you've been letting me believe this child was mine for months." She set down the brush. "You wouldn't have stayed otherwise." The word sliced deeper than the announcement itself. Stayed? As if my love had been conditional, as if I'd been nothing more than an accessory to her plan. In the days that followed, I began noticing things I'd ignored before. Her phone always tilted away from me on the counter. The late nights she explained as work campaigns. The sudden interest in fitness classes she never seemed sweaty from. I replayed every unexplained absence, every smile that didn't reach her eyes. The pieces fit together too neatly, like a puzzle I'd refused to solve. Even my family, loyal as they were, had hints. My mother asked gently on the phone, "Michael, are you sure everything's okay?" Emily seemed distracted at the shower. Distracted. That was one word for it. Another was rehearsed, because the more I thought about it, the more I realized Emily's confession wasn't a slip. It was a performance. Every detail, the timing, the hand squeeze, the glass raised in mock toast, felt planned. She had chosen to humiliate me publicly, to strip me of any chance to control the narrative. And the cruelest part? No one confronted her afterward. Her parents whisked her away into a side room, murmuring comforts. Friends avoided my gaze. Not one person asked how I felt. It was as if my shock, my betrayal, was secondary to protecting her reputation. That was when suspicion hardened into clarity. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was about power. Emily had rewritten our story in real time, and I had been cast as the silent extra in a play I thought I was co-starring. The days after the baby shower blurred together in a haze of numbness, yet the more I replayed Emily's announcement, the sharper the edges became. The betrayal wasn't just a moment. It was a culmination of years of little fractures I'd ignored. I remembered our early days together, when I was the one rearranging my schedule so I could drive her to networking events she insisted were career-changing. I sat in the car, half asleep in parking lots at midnight, while she mingled and laughed inside. Back then, I thought her ambition was something to admire. I never questioned why she didn't want me in the room. Then there was the sudden obsession with privacy. We used to share everything: passwords, calendars, even grocery lists synced on our phones. Somewhere along the way, her phone became glued to her hand. When I once reached to silence a notification, she snatched it back so fast she almost dropped it. "Work stuff," she'd said, forcing a laugh. I had accepted that lie. Even in the pregnancy itself, red flags waved in hindsight. She had gone to appointments alone, explaining that schedules were tight and I didn't need to miss work. At the time, I trusted her. Now I wondered if the reason was simpler, because she didn't want the father in the room to be me. At work, I caught myself drifting during meetings. My boss pulled me aside. "You're not here lately, Michael. Everything okay at home?" How could I answer that? That my wife had stood in a room full of relatives and publicly declared me a placeholder? That I went home each night to a stranger who hummed while folding baby clothes I wasn't sure I had a right to touch? The isolation grew. Her family closed ranks, acting as if nothing unusual had been said at the shower. When I visited my mother, she looked at me with quiet pity, the kind reserved for someone battling an illness. "You don't deserve this," she whispered, pressing my hand. It was the first time anyone acknowledged the truth. At night, Emily scrolled endlessly on her phone. I lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling, suffocated by the silence between us. She never apologized, never explained. She carried on as though my world hadn't crumbled, humming lullabies to a child that, by her own words, wasn't mine. The final crack came a week later, when I opened a drawer looking for batteries and found a folded card tucked under a pile of receipts. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside, written in looping handwriting that wasn't mine, "Can't wait to build a life together, with all three of us. Yours, T. Etta." It felt like confirmation of what I already knew. Not only was she unfaithful, she was already building a future that didn't include me, and I was the last to realize it. It was a Friday night when everything finally split wide open. Emily had gone to yoga, a class she never invited me to join, one she always claimed was her sacred hour of peace. I'd grown suspicious, but after finding that card, I couldn't just sit in the dark anymore, waiting for confirmation, so I followed. Her gym bag slung over her shoulder, she drove not toward the studio but across town, to a quiet street lined with neat duplexes. I parked a block away, my pulse hammering so hard I thought it might crack the windshield. She walked up to one of the doors, knocked twice. The man who answered leaned in and kissed her, not on the cheek, not like a friend, a kiss that told me everything I had refused to accept. I didn't get out of the car, I didn't shout, I didn't march up there like the jealous husband I'd been painted to be. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Watching my wife disappear inside another man's home with the baby she carried, that wasn't mine. The drive home was a blur of headlights and static from the radio. My phone buzzed once, her text. Running late. Class went long. Don't wait up. The gall of it almost made me laugh. The next morning, she breezed into the kitchen, hair damp from a shower that hadn't happened in our house. "Morning," she said casually, kissing the air near my cheek as if nothing had shifted. I couldn't hold it anymore. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice flat. Her eyes flickered just for a moment, before she plastered on that calm smile. "Michael, don't start." "Don't start?" I slid the folded card across the table. "This isn't starting. This is ending." The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. She glanced at the card, then at me, and something inside her seemed to break, not with guilt, but with resignation. "You weren't supposed to find that yet," she murmured. No denial, no attempt at lies, just confirmation. And then came the words that carved the final line between us. "Michael, you'll always be stable, safe, but you're not him. And this baby, he deserves a father who's actually the father." For years, I'd given her stability, patience, a home, a future, and in one breath, she reduced me to a placeholder, a wallet, a man convenient until she could step into the life she wanted. I sat back, every part of me trembling with the weight of her admission. I realized then, my silence at the baby shower hadn't been weakness. It had been the calm before understanding, and now I finally understood. The truth didn't stay locked between our kitchen walls for long. Secrets never do, especially the kind that detonate in the middle of a family celebration. Word trickled out within days. At first, it was just Emily's sister who, accidentally, let something slip during brunch with their mother. Then it spread, piece by piece, until whispers turned into full-blown conversations I wasn't invited into. By the following weekend, I was getting calls from relatives I hadn't spoken to in months, each one trying to check on me, but really just fishing for the sordid details. My parents came over one night, faces etched with confusion and shame. My mother wrung her hands at the kitchen table, whispering, "Michael, why didn't you tell us sooner? Why did we have to hear it from the neighbors?" My father just sat stiffly, jaw clenched, as though my silence had betrayed him somehow too. At work, I could feel the shift in the air. A few of my colleagues had seen Emily's social media, pictures of her at dinners, tagged in places with her new circle. One of them even asked, far too casually, "So, when's the baby due?" I mumbled something about things being complicated, then ducked into the break room before the lump in my throat could betray me. But the worst of it wasn't the gossip. It was the quiet at home. Our house, once filled with ordinary sounds, the hum of the dishwasher, the faint music she played while cooking, became a mausoleum. Emily moved through it like a tenant, her phone always buzzing, her eyes always somewhere else. When she was gone overnight, she didn't even bother with excuses anymore. I stopped asking where she was. Even the baby shower had become a ghost that haunted me. Friends who had been there now avoided my gaze, uncertain whether to pity me or blame me for not exploding when the truth was announced. One neighbor cornered me at the mailbox, lowering his voice as if we were co-conspirators. "Tough break, man. But hey, at least you found out early, right?" I wanted to slam the door in his face, but I just nodded and walked away. Isolation wasn't just physical, it was emotional. It was realizing that every text I received, every knock on the door, every "Are you okay?" came wrapped in curiosity, not compassion. People weren't reaching out to help. They were reaching out to witness. In those weeks, I spent hours sitting in the half-finished nursery. The crib I'd assembled stood against the wall, pristine and untouched. A mobile with tiny felt stars dangled above it, swaying whenever the air conditioner kicked on. I'd sit there in the rocking chair, staring at the empty crib, feeling the weight of a future I had already lost. And the cruelest part? She didn't seem to notice my absence, even when I was sitting right across the room. Emily had already moved on. It was me who was left stranded in the wreckage, invisible in my own home. It happened on a Sunday morning. Emily came back late the night before, her perfume sharp and unfamiliar, and for once, I didn't pretend to be asleep. I sat at the kitchen table, a mug of black coffee in front of me, the nursery monitor still on from habit. She dropped her purse by the door, kicked off her heels, and froze when she saw me sitting there. "You're up early," she said, her tone casual, like nothing had happened. I gestured to the empty chair across from me. "Sit." She hesitated, then rolled her eyes, dragging the chair out with a screech. "Michael, if this is about last night, it's not about last night." I cut in, my voice steady. "It's about all the nights, and about the shower, and about the fact that you stood there, holding my hand, and told an entire room of people that I wasn't the father of your child. You turned my life into your announcement." Her lips parted, but no words came. For once, she didn't have a rehearsed answer ready. I slid a stack of envelopes across the table, bills, bank statements, the ultrasound appointment reminder. "You've made your choice, Emily, and I'm making mine. This ends now." She blinked, as if I'd spoken a foreign language. "What do you mean, this ends? You can't just walk away." "I can," I said. Calm. Final. "I already called an attorney. I'll be filing for divorce tomorrow. The house, the accounts, we'll sort it out legally. But emotionally, I'm done. I won't raise another man's child, and I won't let you use me as a safety net while you play house with someone else." Her face hardened, the same mask of superiority I'd seen at the shower. "So, that's it? You're just gonna throw away everything we built because you're hurt?" I stood, pushing the chair back neatly. "We didn't build anything. I built a life for us, and you tore it down. And I'm not going to stand in the rubble with you anymore." She tried one last shot, her voice sharp and bitter. "You'll regret this, Michael. No one's going to love you the way I did." I paused at the doorway, glancing back only once. "You're right. I hope no one ever does." For the first time in months, I felt something other than humiliation. Not triumph, not revenge, just clarity, a boundary drawn in permanent ink. 3 months later, my apartment smelled like fresh paint and coffee beans. Not baby powder, not her perfume, just mine. The divorce papers had gone through faster than I expected. My lawyer said Emily didn't fight too hard, probably because her affair partner had stepped in, and she was too busy trying to stage a new, picture-perfect family to keep me tethered. At first, I thought I'd feel broken, lost, alone. But the strangest thing was how light I felt, without the constant weight of her lies pressing against my chest. I picked up extra hours at work, poured my energy into projects I'd shelved for years. Evenings that used to be filled with tense silence now stretched out into long runs, cooking experiments, or just sitting on the balcony with a book. My friends started inviting me out again, saying I seemed different, more present, more alive. One night, after a late shift, I got a message from a mutual friend. "Saw Emily today. She looks rough. Baby's due soon. Mark's nowhere in sight. People are talking." I stared at the screen for a long time. A year ago, I would have spiraled, dissecting every word, every rumor. But this time, I just set the phone down, turned on the coffee maker, and went back to the draft I was working on for a client. It wasn't my problem anymore. A few weeks later, I bumped into Emily's cousin at the grocery store. She leaned on her cart, studied me, and said softly, "You know, I think you were the only person who ever really took care of her." She didn't see it, but I hope you know it wasn't wasted. I smiled politely, thanked her, and walked away. Because I did know. The love I gave wasn't wasted. It taught me who I am when everything falls apart. It showed me my capacity for patience, loyalty, and forgiveness, even if it was never reciprocated. The final nail in the coffin came in the form of a letter, an actual handwritten one, from Emily. Pages of apologies, excuses, half-truths. She wrote about being scared, about wanting stability, about how she thought I'd always be there no matter what. She begged me to reconsider, to come see the baby once it was born. I folded the letter once, slid it back into the envelope, and tucked it into the bottom drawer of my desk. Not torn up, not burned, just put away, exactly where it belonged. Because the truth is, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for revenge, or hoping she'd fall apart. She'd made her choices, and I'd made mine. On the morning the divorce was finalized, I went for a run by the river. The air was crisp, the water glittered under the rising sun, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. I stopped, leaned on the railing, and breathed in deep. A stranger jogged past and nodded. I nodded back. Simple, human, free. Emily once told me I'd never survive without her. But here I was, still standing, still breathing, still living. Sometimes dignity isn't about the loudest fight. It's about walking away, quietly, and never looking back.